Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hearing from the Bhagavad-Gita as it is, Chapter 3, entitled Karma Yoga, Text 20. Karmanaiva hi samsiddhim astita janakadaya loka sangraham evapi sampashyan kartamarhasi. Karmana, by work. Eva, even. He, certainly. Samsiddhim, in perfection. Ashtitaha, situated. Janaka adaya, Janaka and other kings. Loka sangraham, the people in general. Eva, Eva api, also. Sampashyan, considering. Kartam, to act. Arhasi, you deserve. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Kings such as Janaka attained perfection solely by performance of prescribed duties. Therefore, just for the sake of educating the people in general, you should perform your work. Please repeat. Kings such as Janaka attained perfection solely by performance of prescribed duties. Therefore, just for the sake of educating the people in general, you should perform your work. Purport. Kings like Janaka were all self-realized souls. Consequently, they had no obligation to perform the prescribed duties in the Vedas. Nonetheless, they performed all prescribed activities just to set examples for the people in general. Janaka was the father of Sita and father-in-law of Lord Rama. Being a great devotee of the Lord, he was transcendentally situated, but because he was the king of Maitreya, a subdivision of Bihar province in India, he had to teach his subjects how to perform prescribed duties. Lord Krishna and Arjuna, the Lord's eternal friend, had no need to fight in the battle of Kurukshetra, but they fought to teach people in general that violence is also necessary in a situation where good arguments fail. Before the battle of Kurukshetra, every effort was made to avoid the war, even by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But the other party was determined to fight. So for such a right cause, there is a necessity for fighting. Although one who is situated in Krishna consciousness may not have any interest in the world, he still works to teach the public how to live and how to act. Experienced persons in Krishna consciousness can act in such a way that others will follow, and this is explained in the following verse. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Anmilitam Yeta Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakaptri Vishcha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patna Bhavane Vaya Vaishnavya Namo Namaha. So in this chapter, an underlying aspect has been detachment. Beginning in verse 7, it was mentioned that how a person working devotional service without attachment is better than a pretender who restrains his working senses but internally is meditating on material things. In the last verse we heard, therefore, without being attached to the fruits of activities, one should act as a matter of duty. For by working without attachment, one attains the supreme. So it's clear from all these verses that we can understand that attachment to material things must be given up completely if we want to attain the perfection of life. We are continually born in the material world because we have attachments for material things. Otherwise, if we didn't have, we would be attached to Krishna. Attachment is a living symptom. We cannot live without attachment. So the choice is either being attached to material things or being attached to Krishna. So in all circumstances, because a devotee is not attached, Vishram Purnam Sukhayate, because a devotee has, like King Janaka, had no interest in the material world. Devotees who are detached like that, Vishram Purnam Sukhayate, they experience happiness everywhere. Although there are so many upheavals in the world, the devotee only experiences happiness because he is not attached to anything in material. And he understands that Krishna is maintaining and Krishna is protecting. So he has no problem wherever he goes in the material world. Whereas the persons with attachments, the mind becomes attached, the intelligence becomes attached, then we are constantly drawn to those things that we're attached to. And what is the grossest anartha within the material world? What attachment is the grossest anartha? Grossest unwanted thing in the material world?
Sex pleasure?
Yeah, sex pleasure. That's the grossest anartha. So in family life, it's a very unnecessary attachment is definitely condemned. We have in the past been quite condemnatory of Grihastha ashram, maybe justifiably so in the early days, because as Prabhupada said once on a conversation with Shama Sundar and the temple president of Paris, he asked Shama Sundar, why are the Grihasthas always in Maya? And Shama Sundar didn't answer, so Prabhupada said, no matter, that's their place to be in Maya. So maybe justifiably we're thinking like that. But nowadays, if you criticize, there can be some reaction, especially if you criticize attachment to children. Even in devotional life, it's not readily tolerated. But the result of being attached to family, deha patya kalatradeshu atmasainesh vapi vasa api Taisham pramato nidanam pashanapi na pashyati, that persons devoid of atma tattva do not inquire into the problems of life because of being too much attached to family, to body, to children, to wife. Therefore, because of that attachment, although they see the destruction around them, they don't consider that their ultimate destruction. In fact, they don't think that they're going to die. They don't consider the problems of material world, birth, death, old age and disease, and the problem, yes, especially the problem that they're going to die. Because of that attachment, they don't consider these things. And also it's because of that family attachment that living entities are happy in any abominable situation of life. So married life is not for, of course, for developing attachment. It's for actually developing detachment. We can look at the example of the problem there. We can examine from the example of Parikshit Maharaj, who was cursed by Shringi to die within 7 days. Now we know that King Parikshit, he was out hunting, and he became hungry and thirsty and fatigued, and he stopped at the ashram of Shamika Rishi, but he was not received because the Rishi was in samadhi. He wasn't in external consciousness. So the king picked up a snake with the tip of his bow and put it around his neck. Now, when his son found out, he was very angry. His eyes were red hot with anger, and he cursed King Parikshit to die within 7 days. So when King Parikshit heard of this, he actually he felt actually that he'd offended the Brahmana. He'd offended the Brahminical culture by what he did. He was very disturbed by what he'd done, and he was expecting some reaction from it. And he was actually pleased that he got this reaction so that he would be cured of his offenses. So he was thinking that that was necessary for him to be detached from worldly things. Now, when Shaunaka Rishi was asking Sutadev about King Parikshit, he wanted to know why he wanted to give up his life, why he was willing to give up his life, because his situation was very good. He was young, he had strength, he was a pure devotee, he had all the opulences of the kingdom, and he was certainly transcendental. He had Ishvara Bhava, that power to protect all his citizens. Citizens were very happy, everybody was prosperous, everything was very nice, the weather was controlled, everything was nice. He was already dedicated his life for maintaining the consciousness of the population, so why would he want to give up his life? So this was King Parikshit's response, that he felt that he was attached. And so he decided to fast to death. He went to the banks of the Ganges. He sat upon kusha grass. The roots faced to the east, and he sat facing the north. And at that time, all the saintly persons, all the VIPs from the universe, all over the universe appeared. Vyasadeva was there, Parashuram was there, Chaivana, Vashishta, Vishwamitra Muni. I mean, they were all there. Everybody of note was there, because they'd heard the king was going to do this fast till death. And he addressed them. He said, the Lord has graciously overtaken me in the form of the curse of this boy, because only in this way, out of fear, will I be detached from material things. So he was thinking he was materially attached to his family, overly attached to family. So that was his conclusion, which is a very healthy thing for a grihasta to feel, that he's attached, and he should not continue that attachment if he wants to get out of the material world and not be born again. So actually, yes, the snake bird that was going to kill Parikshit manifested. That was Takshaka. That was he was a resident of a lower planet. Can't remember which planet it was, but he had the ability to take any form he wanted. And on his way to bite King Parikshit, he met Kashyapa Muni, and Kashyapa Muni had the power to, he had the antidote to the poison, and Takshaka knew that, so he presented Kashyapa with so many valuable things just to distract him, because he knew that he had originally revived a palm tree that the serpent had bitten and reduced to ashes. He'd revived that palm tree, so he knew that Kashyapa could save the king. So he waylaid him, and he took the form of a brahmana, and he bit the king on the leg, and the king was reduced to ashes. But we learn from this that a healthy situation in family life, because of the dangers of family life, is healthy to think that we should not be attached, not that one can develop one's griha and with all material necessities and work just for family maintenance is not desirable. So that's one example. Another example of detachment is, of course, attachments, unwanted attachments, unnecessary attachments. Is the case of King Chitraketu, who was also a saintly king, ruling over a kingdom which had no problems. Everything was supplied for the maintenance of the population, but he was not happy, because he didn't have any progeny, and so because of that reason, nothing could please him. Because he wanted, the Vedic system, you needed to have a son. According to Nyaya Pandit, a family without a son is no better than a desert. So you need a son to offer oblations to the forefathers, to save the forefathers from going to hell. So Chitraketu was lamenting severely because he didn't have a son, and Angira Muni came along and recognized his morose condition, and he asked him so many questions, and he eventually asked him, why is it that your face is somewhat ashen and you're not happy? And then he described to him that it was because he didn't have a son. So Angira Muni arranged a sacrifice which produced some sweet rice, which was given to Chitraketu's famous most popular wife, Kritaduti, and she took that, and then afterwards they had a son. But Angira Muni warned him that your son would be the cause of harsha shoka, happiness and distress. So they had their son, and they were so happy. But then the co-wives, because actually Chitraketu had millions of wives, as described, and not all of them were barren. He couldn't, so he had so many co-wives, and they became so envious, but they were burning up with envious. They lost their intelligence, and they poisoned the son. So when the queen heard of that, she went unconscious, and when the king heard of it, he also went unconscious. And he couldn't walk. He was walking and falling over and falling down, falling unconscious over and over again. So they were lamenting so much the loss of this son. And then Angira came back with another saint. Was it Narada Muni? Another saintly person. And then they gave him the knowledge. They brought back to life the son, and the son preached to them. He asked them, you are my mother and father in this life, but you were not my father and mother in previous lives, and you will not be my father and mother in my next life. So what is our relationship actually? That was the knowledge that the king needed to hear. about how Krishna brings together all living entities and separates them, how the affection for friendship, society and love is illusory. We find we're seeking refuge in these things, but they're all illusory. So after receiving this knowledge, the king came out of that illusion. Actually, he completely recovered his good sense and understood what was the real situation. But that was a case of extreme attachment, because they explained to him that people get married for happiness, but what they achieve is fear, illusion, lamentation and distress. That's the result of material marriage. Fear, illusion, lamentation and distress. So one more example of attachment is the story of King Puranjana, who was a fruitive worker completely under the control of material intelligence. Now he was it was an allegorical story told by Narada Muni to King Prachanabarhishat, because he was so engaged in fruitive activities that he told him this allegorical story about King Puranjana, how he searched all over the world for some place to live where he could be happy. Then eventually he met this beautiful woman in a secluded garden and he got hitched to her. But then his situation was that whatever the queen did, he would follow. If the queen coughed, he would cough. If the queen heard a sound, he would also try to hear what that sound was. If the queen lay down, he lay down. Whatever she did, if she lamented, he would lament. If she ate something, he would eat the same thing. So the queen represented in that allegory his material intelligence. How the material intelligence is telling you, do this, do that, go here, go there. So that's what's been happening to us over many millions of births, that under the influence of the material mind and intelligence, we've been going here and there, doing this and that. And Mogam Parta Sajivati, we have actually been living in vain, because we have not engaged in any sacrifice for Lord Krishna, like Janaka, King Janaka performed so many prescribed duties. So we haven't engaged in any prescribed duties. And we've been going like that for many lifetimes. So to come out of that, we have to get spiritual intelligence. So that is prasade sarva dukhanam, and here asopajayate, that when you get the mercy of the Supreme Lord, threefold miseries are finished, destroyed. Prasana chetaso hyasu buddhi paryavashishtate, that for the happy-minded, prasana chetaso hyasu, happy-minded, buddhi paryavashishtate, that your intelligence soon becomes well established. So in order to get good intelligence, we have to receive the mercy of the Lord. Otherwise we will be laboring under the material intelligence, just like King Puranjana was dutifully following his wife in every respect. We will be following our mind and intelligence. So to appeal for the Lord's mercy is required, and only when we receive that we will be able to give up our material attachments, which is most desirable. So I think I'll finish there. If anybody has any questions, please, I can try and answer them.
You were giving the example of Vaishya Mala.
Yes.
And left his family, and the Rasta should see that they shouldn't have that attachment with their family.
Yes.
So basically,
Unnecessary attachment.
unnecessary.
Too much attachment.
You see, as we have our children, wife, and this one, we have some attachment. We say we don't have attachment, but some honor we have attachment with them. So that is correct, or we should completely discard those attachments?
No, I mean, there has to be some attachment, otherwise why would you bother? You wouldn't bother in the first place. But the process of marriage it's a license for sense gratification in a sense, but it's for purification. It's not to develop a attachment.
So if we have little attachment, that is okay.
But if you're detached in family life, that's very good, isn't it? Because then you actually show real compassion for your wife, for your children. That's real compassion. It's not selfish love.
Just we see Krishna was having attachment with his parents, Devaki and Vasudeva. Although he was with Yashoda and Nand Maharaj, but still he had attachment with Devaki and Vasudeva because he thought that they are my parents. So how can we understand this one?
He was attached.
He was attached to Vasudeva and Devaki. Krishna, when he came to Mathura and when he killed Kamsa, and then he was with Devaki and Vasudeva.
Well, they were having that's the rasa,
That is rasa.
parental rasa.
Yeah, but still
What attachment? What attachment is that?
Just like we see in the story of Salva, when Salva showing him that he has killed Vasudeva, and Krishna is lamenting like anything. So what is that? That is also what we can see.
Well, Krishna is not attached. What is Krishna? Krishna is self-sufficient.
Yeah, he is self-sufficient, but here he shows that because
But he's conquered by love.
yeah, because he's in the form.
He allows himself to be conquered by love.
He is in the human form, so that he is showing when Salva showed him that he has killed Vasudeva, and he started lamenting.
Well, Krishna comes and acts like a human being.
Yeah.
That's his great glory that he does that. He acts like a human being.
So he shows that there is still.
But not everybody understands that he's Krishna. A few do, some don't. Some are covered by Yoga Maya. Sometimes they know, sometimes they don't.
And also during eclipse when he went to Kurukshetra, when Nanda Maharaj Yashoda came, so we see there also he had attachment with them. So how we can understand that we in material world that we cannot leave that attachment?
Well, we have to have attachment. We cannot be without attachment. But it has to be attachment to Krishna.
Yeah, we have to be attached with Krishna, but with some corner we have our family attachment. So what can
Yes, well, the two don't go together. You have to give up one. You can't have both.
we have to give a completely attachment to family.
Absolutely.
Now just like we are in Krishna consciousness.
It's
we
an
are-
illusion anyway. The whole idea of family life is an illusion, materially speaking. That was the example of King Chitraketu. That's the knowledge that they gave him. It's just an illusion. This one lifetime we have parents, and when we die, then next life we'll have other parents. So we go on like that from one birth to the next because of attachment.
So in the material world, we are so many devotees here, but I see that many of them they are attached with their family, including me.
Yes. Well, you have to see it as illusion. You don't see it as illusion.
Although we are serving Krishna, we are doing all activities, but still 5-10 minutes I want to give to my family also sometimes.
Yes, yes.
We are not giving full attention to them. For 5-10 minutes we can speak to them.
Well, you have to maintain them as duty, but without attachment.
And we don't
That's the
have-
difference.
No, we don't have attachment, but for 5-10 minutes if we talk with them once a week or once a month, what is that for?
Well, you have to regulate your life. You have to satisfy. It's said that you have to satisfy your wife in married life. Otherwise, marriage will be disturbed. But in the Vedic culture, the wife did not have access to the husband during the day. And she also lived in the inner part of the house, and the husband in the outer part of the house. So they understood the nature of that. You know, sometimes when devotees get married, the boy follows the girl everywhere to hang the laundry out, wherever she goes, he follows, but not going to break attachments like that. See, the material attachments means that our mind is always being drawn to those objects. So we have no freedom to act. Especially in family life, because when you have a child, you're always thinking of that child. Night and day you'll be thinking of that child.
I just want to make the comment that yes, material family attachment is certainly an issue. At the same time, just a thought to consider is if one's, well, it says like if your mother and father are like atheists, it's better to just avoid them completely. You're not required to take care of them if you're a pure devotee. And as Prabhupada says, nobody's taking care of anybody. Krishna's taking care of everybody. That's there, but also if one has parents or their family or devotees, for example, in the CC, I forget the person's name, but Chaitanya sent somebody to spend time with to take care of their mother and father because they were great devotees. The fathers, the parents were. And when they left their body, then that devotee came back to the Chaitanya. So, you have not only just the concept of material family life, but you also have the concept that maybe some of them are devotees, and then you're actually serving devotees. So, either way, there shouldn't be any unnecessary attachment there. That's for sure.
Well, yes, that's why renunciation is vanaprastha is not necessarily it's not necessarily prescribed in this age, because husband and wife can live together as devotees, live out their days as devotees. Well, in the Vedic custom, the wife was so attached to the husband that she would commit sati. But that was a very nice arrangement of marriage where the wife was completely chaste, which is unusual in this age for a wife to be that chaste.
And the husband's a pure devotee.
Yes, and the husband also has knowledge. Yes.
My experience is the vibe that I get in India. No offense, just different places and things is a strong attachment to material family life.
In India.
Yeah, and even the son or the whatever is supposed to take care of the parents when they get older. But according to Prabhupada, it's absolutely not required. If one fully surrenders to Mukunda, one is not required to take care of one's material family. And then if one does fully surrender to Krishna, Krishna will personally make sure they're okay. That's actually there within Prabhupada's writing. So it's just, I'm trying to offset just something I sense in this region that maybe help people realize that surrendering to Krishna is always in their highest interest. And one doesn't have to have any obligations, material obligations.
Right. But devoted children have to be obedient to their parents, but the parents have to be qualified to deliver them, to liberate them.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're not really fit to be parents.
Otherwise, they're not the real father and the real mother.
So if you don't discipline your children, you're actually spoiling them. It's a fact. most modern people, a lot of modern people, they follow their children around now instead of disciplining them. And the child becomes completely spoiled at a very young age. Otherwise, yeah, we should be obedient to the parents, should respect the parents.
One should take to any of the ashrama.
Pardon?
In what circumstances one has to choose a kind of ashrama?
A kind of what?
Ashram?
Varnashram.
Varnashram?
Yeah. In what circumstances, in what basis we have to choose any of the ashrama?
In what basis do we have Varnashram?
We have to choose a varnashram, any of the ashrama. There are 4 kind of ashrama.
Right. Well, we're not practicing Varnashram, we're practicing devotional service, which is transcendental to the Varnashram system. The Varnashram system is material, whereas devotional service is transcendental.
That the devotional service is also performed in these all kind of ashramas.
Yes, we have those.
In what circumstances, in what basis one should choose any of the ashrama, any of the.
Well, we're given, initially we're given Diksha initiation, and then when we follow perfectly the rules and regulations, we're given a sacred thread, Brahminical initiation. That becomes sooner or later depending upon our dedication and commitment, surrender. And then we can be awarded sannyas if we're sufficiently purged of sex desire. We can get sannyas initiation. And then the guru actually becomes self-manifest. There's no legislative assembly that can choose who is guru and who is not, really. They may be able to choose if someone's not acting as a guru. These are important considerations that our society is now still trying to solve. Who is bona fide guru and who is not. But certainly whoever awakens our faith in Krishna consciousness, that is the person that we should associate with. And don't associate with persons who are not straightforward or bewilder our intelligence.
Or what? I didn't hear the last.
And not straightforward. You know when a devotee is not straightforward because you often think, well, what was that about? A devotee is straightforward, there is clarity. With duplicity, it's hard to know what often is going on, so avoid that association. And associate with people who are straightforward with you. Like the guru is not only soft as a rose, but as hard as a thunderbolt. The guru's words should cut our attachments to the material things. That's the purpose of a guru, actually, is to speak, to cut our attachments to material things. Not to simply praise. So many flattering gurus can go to hell. But that's not a guru's duty. The guru's duty is to is to cut those the hankara, the false ego, the knot of a hankara, by which we identify with this body. The false ego demands two things, right? What are two things? Under the influence of false ego, what? No, under the influence of false ego, one is to control the world and the other one is to enjoy the world. That's the influence of false ego.
It means that on the degree of surrender, they have to choose brahmacharya, manapastra, grahastha, sannyasa.
Surrender, faith. Faith, if you have good faith. If you don't have good faith, then you can be distracted by false arguments or bad association. But generally we are recommended for second initiation by authorities. That's the way it usually works. It's the way it should work. But actually many devotees, they've been given Brahminical initiation, but they don't preach. They won't preach if they're asked to. Actually preaching is a thankless task, largely, until we become very pure and can influence people's lives to a good extent. I mean, I've been preaching for years now the bad effects of overeating, but I've never once had anybody come to me and say, "Thank you very much, you saved my life." Not once in so many years. But actually, you know, if you're honest with someone, you can save them for overeating, you can save their spiritual life. And also in their attitudes for children, you know, to be honest, your attachment is too much. Even in front of the deities, you know, it's too much. But you have to tread very carefully then these things. But Prabhupada said, always speak the truth. He was asked that question, should we always speak the truth? And he said, yes, we should always speak the truth. But as we become pure, then we will speak it in a less disturbing way, maybe. I mean, let's face it, in the West now, maybe you noticed that brahmacharya is almost extinct. Very few brahmacharis in the West now. It's not supported so much, not encouraged. There's no respect between the grihastas and the brahmacharis, not proper respect. It's necessary, isn't it? That the grihastas, they accept the brahmacharis as their children, they look after them, take care of them, make sure they have all the necessities that's required. And when they do that, they can get respect. Yes. I can't hear what you say, I'm sorry. Yes, I know that verse. What is said in that verse? You have to give up all false designations. That means bodily identification. Give up all bodily identification, thinking of yourself in so many different ways. Fat, thin, humorous, serious, right? Unlimited. You have designations according to work.
That is materialism.
Yes.
You even have our spiritual,
Give up all material designations. and utilize your senses in serving the master of the senses, Krishna. That is actually how we purify our senses, mind and intelligence. Without doing that, it's very hard. We have used all the senses in the service of Krishna. Rishikena Rishikesha, Sevanam Bhakti Ruchyate. That is a definition, one of the two definitions of pure devotional service. So every sense we have to use in the service of Krishna, otherwise if there's one unprotected sense, then it can carry away the mind and the intelligence, just as it does quite often when we succumb to material desires, because we allow that. That's why it's very important to be fully engaged in devotional service, 24 hours a day, always doing something. Otherwise, the moment you're idle, then the devil will be there. Yes. Well, thank you for your questions. Jai, all glory to Srila Prabhupada.